Have you ever wondered if you might be difficult to love? This question is uncomfortable, right? Sometimes, we don't even want to think about it. But the truth is, as hard as it is to admit, there may be certain behaviors that make us a bit more complicated to deal with. The curious thing is that, most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. Life is full of nuances, and love is one of the greatest and most complex of these nuances. But relax, because everyone questions this at some point in life. After all, we all want to be loved, and at the same time, nobody wants to be a burden. So, if you've ever wondered if you're making things difficult in love, let's try to understand what might be happening. The fear of being vulnerable. Let's start with something very common, the fear of opening up. Everyone is afraid of getting hurt, right? But could it be that by protecting yourself too much, you end up pushing people away? This happens to a lot of people. The problem is, the more you build walls, the harder it becomes for people to get close. Love requires vulnerability. There's no way around it. You'll need to remove the armor at some point and let the other person see who you really are. If you feel like you're always hiding your true feelings, as if you're trying to protect yourself all the time, you might be making it harder to connect. Keeping things superficial without allowing yourself to dive deeper into emotions may feel safe, but it creates an invisible barrier. And this is something the people around you can feel, even if you don't realize it. Now, think about this. How can someone really love you if you never let them truly know you? It's not easy to be vulnerable. Often, it involves touching old wounds, insecurities, fears buried deep inside. But real love has no room for masks. If you feel like you're always hiding part of yourself, it may be time to ask, what am I trying to protect? Unrealistic expectations. Another sign that you might be difficult to love is unrealistic expectations. Have you ever wondered if you're placing too much pressure on the other person? Sometimes, without realizing it, we expect others to fill all our voids, heal all our wounds, and make us happy all the time. But the truth is, no one has that power. Loving someone doesn't mean they're going to solve all your problems or be responsible for all your happiness. Sure, the right person can bring joy and comfort, but complete happiness has to come from within you. If you feel like you're always unsatisfied, like it's never enough, or something is always missing in the relationship, it may be time to evaluate whether your expectations are realistic. This doesn't mean you shouldn't expect good things from a relationship, but rather that you need to understand that, to love and be loved, you have to accept imperfection. People will fail. And that's okay. Perfection is an illusion that only leads to frustration. Fear of losing control. Have you ever felt that if you're not in control of the relationship, things will fall apart? That's another behavior that can be an obstacle to love. Wanting to control every aspect of the relationship, ensuring everything follows a perfect script, can be suffocating for both you and the other person. Relationships are built on trust, and part of that trust involves letting things flow naturally. If you try to control everything, from emotions to the other person's actions, you may end up creating a tense environment. And let's face it, living under constant scrutiny and pressure isn't exactly the kind of space where love thrives, is it? This fear of losing control often comes from insecurity. Maybe it's the fear of being betrayed or abandoned. And once again, here we are, trying to protect ourselves. But love isn't about control. It's about freedom. It's about trusting that the other person is by your side because they want to be, not because you're forcing them. Difficulty in accepting love. Sometimes the problem isn't that you're difficult to love, but rather that you have difficulty accepting love. It might sound strange, but it happens more often than you'd think. The person offers you affection, attention, and understanding, but something inside you just can't accept it. This may have deep roots, perhaps in past experiences that left scars. If at some point, you were hurt by someone you loved, it's normal to now struggle to believe that someone can truly love you. You start questioning. Why does this person love me? Are they being sincere? And in doing so, you end up sabotaging the relationship. This constant distrust, the need to test the other person's love, can wear down any relationship. It's as if you're always expecting the person to disappoint you, even when they just want to make you happy. In the end, you may push them away because you can't believe you deserve to be loved. If you realize that you struggle to accept love, it's important to look inward and try to understand where this feeling comes from. Sometimes, seeking professional help can be a way to unlock these issues. The truth is, we all deserve to be loved, but first, we need to believe that. Inability to compromise. Loving often means letting go. It's not about losing yourself or giving up who you are, but rather finding a middle ground where both can be happy. If you feel like you always need to have the last word, or that your wishes always need to be fulfilled, you may be making coexistence difficult. Relationships are about give and take. Your needs won't always be the priority, and that's okay. If you find yourself insisting on winning every argument, on always having things your way, it might be time to rethink this approach. Remember, being right is not more important than being happy. Compromising is not a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it shows emotional maturity. It demonstrates that you understand that, for love to work, both people need to be willing to adapt, to listen, and to put themselves in the other's shoes. Inflexibility is like a wall. It may protect, but it also prevents closeness. The endless pursuit of perfection. Another important point is when you pressure yourself to be perfect, to the point that it affects the relationship. Have you experienced this? The feeling that you're never good enough, that you always need to do more, to be loved? This endless pursuit of perfection can be a huge love saboteur. Because no one can be perfect all the time, and trying to meet this unrealistic expectation only creates frustration and anxiety. Worse yet, this self-imposed pressure can spill over onto the other person. You start expecting them to be perfect too, to never make mistakes, to meet all your expectations. And then what happens? The frustrations pile up. Both for you, who never feel good enough, and for the other person, who starts to feel the weight of these unrealistic expectations. Perfection doesn't exist. And often, what makes someone lovable are precisely their imperfections, those quirks that make them unique. How to change this situation? Now that you've reflected on some behaviors that might be making love harder in your life, the question remains: how can you change this? The first step is awareness. Without realizing what's happening, there's no way to change. So, if you've made it this far, you've already taken a big step. The second step is to start working on these behaviors. It can be gradual, one at a time. If you're afraid of being vulnerable, why not start opening up a bit more? If you find yourself trying to control the relationship, maybe it's time to loosen the reins and trust more. If your expectations are too high, try re-evaluating what really matters. Change doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. And it's important to be gentle with yourself during this process. Remember, love is built between two people, but it starts within you. When you love and accept yourself, it becomes much easier to allow the other person to do the same. Love isn't always a bed of roses, and that's okay. What matters is the willingness to grow, learn, and improve. If you feel like you're being difficult to love, it doesn't mean you're not worthy of love. It simply means that, like every human being, you have your issues to work through. And remember, being loved is great, but loving is too. True love is an exchange, and the more you work on yourself, the easier it becomes to share that exchange with someone. So, ask yourself, what can I do today to be lighter in love? If you're committed to your personal development and want to keep evolving and leveling up, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here, I always bring practical and powerful content to help you keep growing. And if this video helped you in any way, make sure to leave a like so that more people can be impacted as well. In the description, you'll find links to books that I've carefully selected, works that can completely transform the way you think and act. It's definitely worth checking out. And don't leave just yet. Take a look at the suggested videos here on the screen. They will help you even more on your personal development journey. See you there.